Hey, what's up guys? So I recently got back from CES in Las Vegas. I just did a video talking about all the new radar detectors and dash cams that were introduced at the show, but there's way more stuff at the show. It's the Consumer Electronics Show and it is massive. Basically the idea of the show is they're giving us an idea as far as a different type of tech that we can expect to be coming out this year, as well as a lot of cool ideas and concepts for things even farther down into the future. So it's basically giving us a preview into the future of all sorts of cool tech that we can expect. So I spent about 3 days or so just kind of walking around the show and checking out all the cool stuff that was on display. And in this video, I pretty much just want to share with you guys all the coolest tech that I found on display at CES 2019. So starting off, one thing that I thought was really cool was this robot that can actually play you in ping pong. It's got cameras and sensors and everything, and the better of a player you are and the more challenging you are, the more challenging it gets in return. There was also a flexible tablet that could literally be folded in half and turned into a double-sided phone. That was really unique and cool to see. That company, Royole, they had a number of different curved displays that they were showing. Now LG though, they took the whole curved display thing to another level. They had some of the most incredible stuff on display at the show, including these beautiful curved TVs, which everybody just sat back and was like, oh my gosh, this is gorgeous. Speaking of curved TVs, they also had these roll-up TVs that pretty much just sat in this little box at the base, and then when you want to watch TV, they'll literally roll up on display so that you can watch whatever you want on TV. Then once you're done watching, the TV will roll itself back up down into the box and out of the way so it's no longer visible. Now, the YouTuber Marques Brownlee, MKBHD, he did a fantastic video on it, and just click the button on screen or the link in the video description. It'll show you more about LG's really cool roll-up TVs that were one of the coolest things at the show. Another thing that was really popular was 8K TVs. Not 4K, only 4K, but 8K TVs. There were a number of manufacturers doing this. Now, taking a look at the TVs up close, it was incredible the amount of detail that you could see. LG had an 88-inch OLED TV on display. Samsung, on the other hand, had a 98-inch 8K QLED display. 98 inches, that's over 8 feet from corner to corner. Now, if that wasn't big enough, Samsung also had another TV literally called the Wall, which could expand and take up the entire wall. It could be any shape or aspect ratio that you want, depending on what you're watching. Robots were also a thing at the show, and Samsung had these that were almost like something straight out of the Jetsons. They were showing how they could be used in restaurants, and you could maybe order your food from the restaurant, and then once it's ready, it'll actually bring the food right to your table, a lot like the server would. Now, we have some robots already, things like Roombas that can go around and vacuum up your floor, but one thing they were showing were robots that can recognize when there's a mess and then go out and do the cleaning for you automatically. There were robots that could clean not only your floor, but also your windows, climbing vertically to clean your windows for you. One of the robots that I thought was pretty cool was actually designed to help your kids learn how to read. You could literally open up a book in front of the robot and it would start reading the book for you in whatever language that you want.
In the classroom, Lucy sat down near the teacher. Ralph carelessly hurried over and tripped on Lucy's foot.
Cell phones were a big thing too. One of the big things these days is trying to shrink the size of the notch at the top of the cell phone where companies are putting the selfie camera or different sensors or the speaker and whatnot. So making smaller notches, this is now becoming a thing, and there's a couple different techniques that people are doing. One of the coolest ones was a little hole punch notch. It's just a little circle off in the corner of the phone where the selfie camera sits. They also had some phones that were completely notch-free. And in this case, if you want to take a selfie, you can actually flip up the back of the phone and the selfie cameras will pop up so you can take a picture. And then when you don't need it, you flip it back down and then the entire front of the phone is completely display. There's also just more and more cameras being thrown onto the phones in the first place. On the software side, there's some cool things being done as well. One thing I thought was pretty nifty was this feature called a 3D panorama. You know when you want to shoot a normal panorama, you can take your phone and kind of turn it slowly to shoot the panorama? Well, they have 3D panos now that can actually stitch that panorama that you take and then turn your panorama into a moving live photo, basically, making them even more realistic. DJI was there with a bunch of their gimbals, and one that was pretty cool, it's already out, it's the DJI Osmo Pocket, which is this really teeny tiny 4K gimbal that's way smaller than my, well, cell phone and gimbal that I've been using throughout the show. DJI does a bunch of drones, and well, there were actually a ton of drones all throughout the show in different shapes and sizes. One of my favorite drones is created by a company called Electrofly, which literally does a drone that you can climb onto and fly around on, kind of like a jetpack or something. Now there's no controls on this drone. You basically just pre-program the route that you want to fly and then I guess hold on for dear life, and then it'll go around and fly you to wherever you want. On a related note, if you want something a little bit more traditional, Uber, it's actually getting into the helicopter business, and they're showing off this wild-looking 6-rotor helicopter that you're going to be able to climb into, and it'll fly you from one city to another. This was really popular, and there were a ton of people checking this out. Another big thing was 5G internet. It's pretty much the successor to 4G LTE that we have in our cell phones now. They're now showing off some cell phones that have 5G built in. Now 5G, it's way faster than 4G to the point where we could even use it for our home internet. They were demoing speeds by streaming 8K video, 10 bits, 120 FPS, so a ton of data to push, and they were streaming it no problem. Now, this super fast wireless internet is also going to be really handy as cars get smarter. They start talking to one another, and then of course as we are now getting into self-driving cars. Self-driving cars, these were huge at the show. There were a ton of people doing self-driving cars. Now, one of the things that people were exploring at the show was the idea of, well, if we're not actually having to drive and pay attention to the road, what could we do in our cars with all this free time? So there were all these concepts of really roomy and spacious cars where you could just turn and chat with your neighbor sitting right next to you. Since we no longer have to pay attention to the road and worry about distracted driving, there were some cars that had these big screens on display to watch things, or even some of them were doing augmented reality to where the screens that were lining the sides of the car could then overlay onto actual reality information about maybe cool restaurants or things that you'd want to see as you're driving past to give you more ideas of just kind of what's going on around you. One of my favorite ones is, well, we could just play games in the cars. And to illustrate this, there was one where you and the other passengers in the car, we could all have a rowing competition and exercise in the car while the car drives itself. So all sorts of just fun ideas of what we could potentially do in cars as we start moving toward the reality of self-driving cars. Now, for those of you who ride bikes or ride motorcycles, one cool thing I saw was this kind of neoprene-looking mask that goes over your face, and it's a special anti-pollution mask. It's called the r-pur, and it pretty much blocks and absorbs all of the different pollutants in the air, bacteria, viruses, anything like that, smog, so that as you're riding around, you're able to breathe better and your lungs stay cleaner. Now, speaking of transportation, the post office was at CES too, surprisingly. What they were showing off was this little pad that sits in the bottom of your mailbox and lets you know when you've got mail. Once you do, you get a delivery notification with maybe lights in your house turning on or going different colors, or even notifications being sent to your watch or something. Something else that I thought was really cool was a special machine that can literally fold your laundry for you. Shirts, sweaters, pants, whatever, you just put your laundry into the top of this machine, it takes it in, and your nicely folded laundry comes right out the bottom. There's also machines that can cook for us and bake bread for us. It starts with the flour, and the flour goes into the oven, turns it into bread, and then on the other side of the machine, it's basically like a vending machine full of freshly baked bread, and you could walk up to this vending machine type thing at a grocery store and pick up freshly baked bread. You can pick the warmest, freshest loaf, or maybe a cooler one, whatever you like. There's apps now where you can scan the different ingredients in your fridge, and it's able to tell what all the ingredients are and then help you figure out something to cook. It'll give you recipe ideas, it'll tell you any ingredients maybe that you're missing. When it comes time to start cooking, it can actually fire up your oven for you to the proper temperature and let you know when it's time to put everything in. So everything is starting to become smarter and more connected now. Another thing that was really popular there were the Impossible Burgers. They're veggie burgers that almost impossibly seem like real beef. I had a chance to try one there, and yeah, I mean, it looks just like real beef. It tastes pretty similar, not exactly the same, but really close. It's got the same texture as beef, and it even bleeds in the middle when you bite through it. When it comes to cooking, there was this really cool solar oven called the GoSun, where basically you put food inside and then it uses mirrors to focus the sun's light onto the food and cook your food for you with no electricity required. So it's something that you could use off the grid, and it even works in overcast weather, which is something that I thought was pretty cool, especially living here in Seattle where we don't always get a lot of sun. And then finally, speaking of using the world around you, one of the coolest things that I saw was a machine that can literally create water out of thin air. This Israeli company created the WaterGen, which pretty much just uses the humidity in the air to condense it and turn it into clean drinking water. I had a chance to try some, and yeah, it tastes like water. They're able to make a bottle of water in 20 minutes. So this is awesome. They could literally show up to maybe disaster areas and just start providing people clean drinking water where they otherwise wouldn't have it. If you want to go off the grid, you're able to just get water, and all you need is electricity, and then boom, you can just take the air and turn it into water, which was wild. So all sorts of just really cool stuff across the board. So these were, I guess, some of my favorite things besides countermeasures that we saw at the show. So I'm curious from you guys, like looking through this, what are some of the coolest ones that you guys think? What are some of your favorites that you've seen here or even that you've read about online? Let me know what else you've seen. So yeah, anyway, that was just kind of some of the coolest stuff that I saw over the 3 days of walking through CES. Obviously the show is huge and there's no way you can ever see everything, but these were a lot of the coolest ones that I saw. So thanks for watching. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I've got some links in the video description down to, all the different radar detectors and dash cams and all the stuff that I actually went to go see. All that stuff will be listed down below. This is all kind of the non-countermeasure stuff that I don't typically look at, but was actually really cool to see. So awesome. Thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.